But first, they say timing in life is everything, and that applies to no one more than Teal MP Monique Ryan, who spent the better part of today extolling the health benefits of electric vehicles. She tweeted, let me read it for you, 600 plus Australians die every year because of brief periods of exposure to air pollution, more than 11,000 from longer periods of air pollution. We'll save lives with the new fuel efficiency standards and from helping people transition to electric vehicles. Well, as I said, timing is everything. If only she'd read the New York Post yesterday. Their headline read, and I'll quote again, electric vehicles release more toxic emissions, are worse for the environment than gas-powered cars, according to a study. Now, the article goes on to detail how EVs are typically about 30% heavier than petrol vehicles, and so their tyres and brakes wear out faster, releasing more toxic particles into the air. According to data firm Emissions Analytics, EVs release 1,850 times more particle pollution than petrol vehicles. Now, the particles don't contribute to global warming, but according to the New York Health Department, they do contribute to illnesses like heart disease and asthma. So if Monique Ryan is really concerned about air pollution and people's health, Caleb, she may well tweet tomorrow that EVs should be banned.
Yeah, highly likely, isn't it? And it just shows, I mean, we were talking about this last night, it shows how utterly ridiculous this fast move into electric vehicles is because, once again, like we were saying last night, the technology just isn't up to scratch. I mean, most of the weight of these electric vehicles sits in those highly flammable lithium-ion batteries, which, of course, is full of stuff that gets mined out of the ground by, little slave kids over in Africa somewhere, and then we pat ourselves on the back and say what a great job we're doing for the environment. It's all hunky-dory. Meanwhile, you're sending out more particles into the atmosphere that, according to Monique Ryan, kill at least 600 people a year. If you want to kill more people, go and buy an electric vehicle would seem to be the moral of the story here, because it's not only the particles you release, of course. The more a vehicle weighs, the more dangerous it is for a pedestrian, right? And we've always had this complaint, all these buggers driving around in their two-rack tractors, they're mowing down the pedestrians. You've got no chance if you come across one of them at a pedestrian crossing. What about an electric vehicle? You'd be flat in 2 seconds.
They're silent
on that,
as well.
because of the weight, they do more damage to the road.
Correct.
And of course, if you're not using petrol, you're not paying any levy, which is meant to go towards road maintenance.
And they've yet to show how these are better for the environment on any score. We know the production of them is no less emissions. Some people argue they're more emissions to produce, in no small part due to all the minerals that they've got to mine in order to make these jolly batteries. Now we've got this kind of data coming out, although this first came out in 22. Thank goodness it's been resurrected because it was quoted by the Washington Post. So now everyone's all over it again. Keep doing that, Washington Post. Maybe you are good for something. And then you've got the charging, which again, it's electricity. So thank you, fossil fuels, for the charging and getting these around the roads. And then once they're dead, what are you going to do with these lithium-ion batteries?
And that's
which are quite deadly. You're going to have hundreds of thousands of these batteries to dispose of, and they haven't figured that out yet. It was only a few weeks ago.
Parts of them. It's a difficult process.
It was only a few weeks ago. We were reading articles as if it had just occurred to them, like, wait a minute, what are we going to do with these batteries? This certainly isn't planet-friendly. On and on it goes. They're not cheaper to run either. We were recently talking about an experiment that they did running cars between Melbourne and Sydney. The EV was not cheaper to run and just took longer because it takes a lot longer to charge than it does to fuel up. And for what? It's not better for the planet. Is it any wonder that the US and many manufacturers actually worldwide are completely peeling back their EV targets? Because firstly, the market has decided people simply aren't taking them up at the rate that they thought they would. And despite all the subsidies and all of this is going to be so much better for the planet, people simply aren't buying them.
That's the most damning thing about the whole EV thing, is that the only way they can get people to buy them is to make petrol vehicles so expensive, hence this emissions standard that's being introduced. jack up the price of petrol vehicles, force people into EVs.
Yeah, and I mean, they've already diddled it in terms of the tax breaks and stuff you can get for an electric vehicle. And I know someone back in Adelaide who had a petrol car on order. He was waiting for it and he was sort of getting sick of waiting for it because we know the hold-ups we've had. So he started looking at electric vehicles and he worked out that if he took out a novated lease on one of these BYD electric cars, with all the tax breaks he got, he ended up 10 grand further in front. So he cancelled his order for the combustion engine car and took the electric car. He couldn't give a flying rip about the planet. He just wanted the benefit of the tax breaks, which he was more than willing to take. But even with those tax breaks there, you haven't seen a major proliferation in people buying the cars, which is why they have to make petrol cars more expensive. And it's not only that they are heavier and therefore cause the tyres to wear down faster. Heavier vehicles require different tyres, and the tyres they put on heavier vehicles, like electric vehicles, are made, they're synthetic rubber, so they're made out of, you know, oil and all sorts of other stuff as well. It just gets better and better and better every time you look into this stuff.
Incredible.